Why did Steamboat erupt? At 3 a.m., the quiet dark of Norris Geyser Basin shatters. A deep subterranean thud becomes a roar as a column of scalding water rockets skyward, higher than any other geyser on Earth. For minutes that feel like hours, the ground vibrates, steam billows, and nearby trees glitter with hot spray. Then, as suddenly as it began, Steamboat settles into a long, hissing exhale. Why here? Why now? And why Steamboat? The stage beneath the spectacle. Steamboat sits atop, a living machine, a hydrothermal system powered by Yellowstone's underlying magmatic heat. 3 ingredients make a geyser possible. Heat. Rising volcanic gases and hot fluids warm groundwater to near or above boiling conditions at depth. Water, snowmelt and rain percolate downward, recharging a maze of fractures and porous rock. Plumbing. A uniquely tuned network of cracks, constrictions, cavities, and silica-lined pipes that can trap water, build pressure, and then release it violently. Plenty of places have heat and water. The rarity is the plumbing. Steamboat's narrow, silica-armored conduits and deep reservoirs prime it for towering jets, like a pressure cooker with a very small nozzle. How an eruption builds. In the hours to days before an event, groundwater percolates into steamboats. Reservoirs. Continuous heating turns deep water into a two-phase mix of liquid and steam bubbles. In a constricted system, that steam can't rise freely. Instead, pressure climbs. Silica continuously precipitates from hot, silica-rich water onto the walls, smoothing and tightening constrictions. This progressive sealing helps the system hold pressure longer, setting the stage for spectacular release. As pressure rises, water at depth can remain liquid even above the surface boiling point, a superheated state. All it needs is a small nudge, an opening crack, a slug of steam coalescing, a pressure drop to flash violently to steam. That flash is the spark. The trigger problem. What flips the switch? Steamboat is infamously irregular. Intervals can be days or years. Scientists track an array of potential triggers, none sufficient alone, often acting in combination. Hydrologic recharge. Seasonal snowmelt and heavy rainfall raise groundwater levels, increasing the head of water feeding the system. In wetter periods, Steamboat tends to have more frequent eruptions, not perfectly, but noticeably. Small pressure changes, drops in barometric pressure, e.g. with passing storms, slightly lower the lid on the system, making flashing easier. Seismic and crack dynamics. Tiny earthquakes or natural rock strain can rearrange fractures, opening a pathway or pinching another, modulating how pressure accumulates and releases. Thermal feedbacks. As hot water circulates, it deposits more silica, sinter, narrowing throats. Conversely, an eruption can scour and widen passages, temporarily changing the system's tuning. Gas behavior. Exsolution of dissolved gases, chiefly steam but also CO2, changes bubble size and distribution, affecting how pressure waves move, and whether a stable geysering rhythm can establish. In other words, Steamboat's plumbing evolves minute by minute. It doesn't need a big outside shove. It needs the right internal configuration. The eruption itself. Most steamboat outbursts have two acts: Water phase, a towering, chaotic jet, often 60-90 meters, 200-300 feet or more, driven by rapid flashing of deep, superheated water to steam. The narrow vent focuses the jet like a fire hose. Steam phase. After the main blast, the system bleeds heat and gas for hours, sometimes longer. This prolonged exhale is the system resetting, cooling, depressurizing and recharging. Nearby pools flood with runoff. Sinter terraces grow. Trees get coated in mineral-laden spray. The plumbing has been recarved, slightly different now, so the next interval won't mirror the last. What Steamboat's eruptions are not. Because Yellowstone sits atop a vast magma system, it's tempting to link any hydrothermal burst to magmatic unrest. But monitoring data, ground deformation, gas emissions, seismicity patterns consistently show that Steamboat's activity is hydrothermal, not a sign of imminent volcanic eruption. The heat source is magmatic, yes, but the timing and style of Steamboat's eruptions are governed by shallow water rock gas plumbing, not pulses of rising magma. Why the 2018 onward bustle? And why the slowdowns? Steamboat surged into a prolific period starting in 2018 with frequent major eruptions for several years, then lulls and slowdowns. The leading explanations point to plumbing state changes and hydrology. A shift in fracture connectivity may have created a more efficient pressure trap and release cycle, enabling frequent eruptions. Above average recharge during wet years can prime the system. Drier spells can stretch intervals. Over time, eruptions themselves rework the vent, alternately roughening, encouraging bubble trapping, or clearing, allowing easier degassing, which can either encourage or dampen the next show. No single knob explains every burst or every quiet stretch. Geysers operate at the knife edge between stability and chaos. Small changes tip the balance. The honest answer. So why did Steamboat erupt this time? Because in that moment, heat, water and plumbing aligned to create a metastable reservoir primed for runaway boiling, and a small perturbation, perhaps a pressure dip, a fracture flutter or a bubble avalanche, pushed it over the edge. The Gemu eruption then remade the system, setting the conditions for an interval that will be similar in spirit but never identical in detail. Steamboat's unpredictability isn't ignorance. It's physics at the edge of order, an exquisitely tuned, ever-changing instrument. When it plays, it's the loudest geyser on Earth. When it rests, it's rewriting its own sheet music. And that, more than anything, is why it erupts the way it does.